Your power, fill me with your spirit every hour. Set my soul afire, oh Lord. Set my soul afire, oh Lord. Make my life a witness of your power. Fill me with your spirit every hour. Set my soul afire. Set my soul afire, oh Lord. Set my soul afire, oh Lord. Make my life a witness of your power.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to our Follow Your Faith tonight. And we are honored, we are really privileged to have Dr. Lori Tedjeske with us here tonight to talk about this rather extensive report on our parish, which she did. Thank you, Lori, for all of that. And let's pray for a moment and kind of center ourselves as we ponder our parish and hopefully we have open eyes and open hearts as we ponder all this here tonight. So in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, amen. Heavenly Father, bless Lori in a very, very special way as she shares with us her findings about the parish of our Mother Sorrows, a place very special for all of us. Bless all of us as we listen, and maybe listen with open hearts and critical hearts in many ways, so we can ask her questions about what we hear, so we could move forward in new ways. And bless your church as your church seeks to go forward in ways that takes on the most, as Pope Paul VI said, the church exists to evangelize, and help us be the instruments of that in our world here today. So bless us today, and we ask all this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
So, thank you, Lori, very much. I'm going to turn all this over to Marty, and he's going to kind of get us started, and then kind of off you go there. Looking forward to it tonight.
Yeah, Lori, we're so happy that you could join us tonight. As I was reading your executive summary, and this sentence struck me. It says, the purpose of the study was to learn about the impact of leadership on one's discipleship and engagement in the church community. And Father, I give you great credit here for it's never easy to take a look at yourself because you really don't know what that look is going to reveal. Looking at yourself in the mirror is one of the toughest things we do, but it's important that we do it. There's too many people who won't look in the mirror or don't like what's looking back at them. Yeah. So before we get into Lori and her report, what did you hope? I mean, why, as the pastor of the church, did you agree to do this? What was your reasoning behind it?
Well, Lori, I think the first time we talked was a couple of years ago about all this. Yeah, it's a while. And then you kind of like brought up the idea, and I went, oh, yeah, that'd be a great idea. And I don't know if either of us took it that seriously way back then. But when we got together more recently about all that, and you were really pretty adamant about doing this. And I think it's always good to look under the hood. Look and see, what do you really have? What's really going on here? What are people really thinking? Because oftentimes I really don't know what folks are thinking about things. And given your qualifications and everything that we talked about before that, I just thought, here is our opportunity for a objective look at who we are as a parish from someone from the outside looking in, which was really important to me because I think if we did it all ourselves, it would be kind of skewed in a certain way. So doing that, I think, what an opportunity. And by the way, all this stuff I got in front of me is all this stuff that Lori came back with all this that just is incredible. I wasn't expecting 1/4 of this to come back. And we got things, and she even did an evaluation on me with all this too, which I thought was kind of interesting as well. So that's why we did it. And I think your wanting to do it and your desire to do it and your qualifications to do it, I think were overwhelming. And so I thought this is a great idea.
And Lori, to begin with, I'd like your take on what the organization does so that people have a sense of this just wasn't Dr. Tedjeske sitting around, talking to a few folks. I mean, there's science behind this, obviously, but give me an idea of what the goal is when you take on a project like this. What are you looking for? What do you not hope to find necessarily, but what's the goal, the overall goal, and what motivates you to do this kind of work?
Yeah, thanks. And thank you all for having me. I really appreciate it. This has been such a fun case study and project. So I contract with an organization called Fulfill. They're a newly created nonprofit organization that comes out of a for-profit organization called ACS Technologies. ACS Technologies has been providing churches across the country with software for years. They have a great reputation. And in creating this nonprofit wing of the organization, the goal is to really help mission-driven churches across the country be able to further their mission with maybe some assistance that they otherwise wouldn't be able to have. We're really at the beginning stages of this organization. And so I had an opportunity to partner with them to do a case study that both would hopefully benefit our Mother of Sorrows as well as fulfill the organization. And I really, really wanted to put forward our Mother of Sorrows as a possibility for a case study because of my relationship with the parish through my in-laws. And I just want to say, I want to add on to what you said earlier, Marty, about Father Mark taking on the opportunity to evaluate. Culturally, the Catholic Church and most churches don't often ask parishioners for feedback.
Yep.
So this is still a new thing in churches and in dioceses to really ask the people how the church is supporting them in their journey and asking them to really self-reflect on their own journey. So that's sort of what we did here, in part with the discipleship indicator, which we'll get into that in a little bit. And really just trying to get a sense of who the parish is, both in the numbers way and the quantitative way, and also in the qualitative way, and so hearing the stories that fill in the gaps with the numbers.
And I want to make sure that people understand the kind of work you do. You put it out there, people respond, and you summarize what they told you. This isn't, I don't want to say that, or I don't want to say this, or I want to make them look good, or I want to make them look bad. This is what people told you.
That's correct. And one of the things that we ensure is that we're not going to use direct quotes from anyone so that people feel that it's a safe space to offer commentary and their experiences. And really, I think people felt safe to do that because they know Father Mark and they know they genuinely want to improve the parish and help one another grow. So I did not have a problem getting honest feedback from people.
That's good. And by the way, we need some honest feedback tonight too. So folks, you're welcome to ask the questions as well.
Yeah, please.
Myself, Jerry, and Marty, we have a bunch of them here. But anyway.
And you, as you told us earlier, there were about 200 copies of the report that were picked up at Mass today. So we know there's at least 200 people that have some basis for the information that you're going to report on. And Lori, I know, can you summarize in a general way before we start picking little parts here and there, but give us a general summary of what you found?
Sure. I think some of the highlights that, again, we'll see in a little bit, Omos is a very welcoming and inclusive community. Now, I want to premise all this by saying this might not reflect an individual's views or thoughts, but this is the summary data. This is what has risen to the top of overall themes. So number one thing, people feel welcome here. People are driving quite a distance in some cases to come here. Some people aren't Catholic that are practicing here because they feel safe and they feel welcomed. It doesn't matter where they are on their faith journey. They feel like this is a place they can come and people are going to welcome them. The second big thing, and I know based on the assessment that I did with Father Mark, he might not want to hear this, but Father Mark is huge here. I mean, Father Mark's energy is bringing others along on their journey, helping them really establish and continue and grow their relationship with Christ. And I think people trust him and are energized by him. So that's another big strength of the parish community. One of the things that, on the flip side, that I think people would like to see more of, or people have identified that they'd like to grow in, number one thing would be the sacrament of reconciliation and participating in confession. As you'll see in the slide deck, only 28% of the people that took the survey said that they have participated recently in confession. But 31% of the population that took the survey identified this as one of their top 3 areas that they want to grow in over the next year. So I think that's what I would say is there's sort of some low-hanging fruit that came out of this case study of things that are not monumental changes that need to be made, but just a couple of practices and priorities that if people can make little changes and the church will support them in that could really help their spiritual growth.
That was an interesting one, because the guy to my left here really gets on top of his preacher's horse when he wants to talk about people going to confession. I mean, I'll be in that confessional. I'll stay as long as you keep coming. We hear it a lot. And then there are those of us, and I'm one. I can't tell you the last time I went, but I know what it was. Okay, yeah. Well, you're right. Okay, it was face to face, and it was in the rectory. But it's interesting when I saw that, because I thought, well, if people want to grow that, why don't they show up? Because he'll tell you we don't get the kind of participation that you'd like to see.
No, so that was that's jumped off the page to me.
It jumped off the page to me too.
You said that, so. Wow, what can we do? What can we do? That was my big question. So,
Yeah, I mean, not surprising. A lot of people have over the years had bad experiences in confession.
Yeah. That would be me.
Scary. And Marty's raising his hand.
Yeah.
It can feel scary. It can feel shameful. It can feel all the things. And it's really just, making that first step to get in there. I think once people go, they remember, okay, I can do this. It's not that bad. But to your point, Marty, I know people that haven't been in 30 years.
Yep.
And so when you've been away that long, it's scary. You don't even know. You don't remember the prayers. You don't remember what to say. You don't, it can be an uncomfortable situation.
Well, you want to share with us now. You have slides to take us through here to give us a little bit more sense of what we're talking about. Thank you for the visuals, because people get tired of looking at the two old guys. We're happy to have you in between us. I will tell you, it's a much better looking Follow Your Faith tonight than it's been in a long, long time.
I'm glad I could be that for you all.
All right, thank you. So show us. Let's go through your slide report. Your report there.
I'm going to put the slides up.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Here we go. Okay.
Sure.
I was trying to give you that little hint, Steve. It's time to pull them up.
All right.
It's a dramatic
Well,
pause.
as Steve's pulling those up, I'll let everyone that might not be aware. I came to Omos for a weekend in March and was able to meet with several people, talk with several people, and meet with Father Mark, and really just experience the mass and all the activities that you have going on there. So, Steve, if you could back up to the data sources slide.
He's getting there. There we go.
No,
We have a little flower there first of the time.
it won't.
I
There we go,
apologize
there we
when
go.
we were
There
looking
we
at it
go.
earlier.
There we go. Whoa.
Yeah.
All right.
There we go.
Next slide.
There we go.
There we go.
There you go.
There we go. So I know that the first two are bolded because those are probably the two data sources used for this case study that most people are familiar with. The first was the discipleship indicator, which 170 people from the parish were able to participate in. So that represented about 25% of the mass going population. By survey standards out in the market, that is a good sample size. That's a reasonable sample size.
There's no
I lost
audio.
the audio.
Wait a second, Lori. People are saying there's no audio. Hang on a minute. Let's make
That's
sure
a
we get
problem
this
on
right.
our side. With
Yeah,
something with
yeah.
our feed.
Let's keep talking. So maybe
Sure.
we
Lori,
can
can
hear.
you talk once?
Sure. Can you hear me now?
No audio, Betsy just said.
Was there audio before
I can
you
hear her
put
now,
slides
but
up?
I think it might, when I put the slides up, it might have lost it.
Yeah, that's when people started commenting that we
Yeah,
lost it.
yeah.
it's
So
something
is
to do
that
with the slides.
fixable or?
Linda said, yep. What do you mean, yep? It's back. Okay, Julie said it's back.
Give me 1 second. I got to add her audio back to the PowerPoint
All right,
slide.
okay, all
Not
right.
something we typically do. Give me 1 second.
All right.
Obviously, Lori, we don't do this very often where we have multi fixtures. You know, we've done people on Zoom, but it's just them on Zoom. So Steve was sweating it out all day as it was, and now he's probably lost, I don't know, 2 or 3 pounds in the last minute. By the way, I was told, and you know the connection, there is a house full of people, your relations, who are watching tonight. Not that you probably knew that was going to happen, but Tony just sent me a text and said they're all there and they're all watching. So you've got a rooting section.
Well, good. Shout out to my in-laws in Johnstown.
There you go. There you go.
There you go. There you go.
I mean, we can do a little applause thing in the background, like they would be
Oh.
applauding, right? You know.
Lori, why don't
Thank
you
you.
go ahead and talk to that first slide a little bit while we're just looking at it. We don't have it there, but you can sort of talk to that slide, and then whenever Steve gets it up, and then it would just go from there. Why don't you go ahead and talk to
Sure.
the slide? Go ahead.
So, there in the case study, there were several data sources that I used to come to the findings in the executive summary that I sent Father Mark. The first two you're probably familiar with. That's the discipleship indicator. That was the survey that circulated through the parish in March. I believe it was March. Well, that's the report, Father. The actual survey questions are on that report as well. It was probably done electronic format, online. There may have been some paper copies, but most of them probably did it online. So there were 170 people that took the survey from OMOS, which represented about 25% of your Sunday mass going population. By any standard marketing out in the field marketing standard, that's pretty good. That's a decent sample size. It's there we go. Obviously, the more the merrier, but 25% is a really good response rate. The second thing that you may be familiar with was a series of interviews that I did during my visit. I had a chance to meet with 19 individuals, at least 5 groups of people. I had plenty of casual conversations and even did some phone calls afterwards, which really gave me the quantitative portion of the data summary. And those questions can be found in the executive summary, the questions that I asked people. Typically, the questions were like, what do you think some of the strengths of the parish are? If you could change some things, what would you like to see changed? I asked people to describe Father Mark's leadership style. And those were pretty consistent throughout the people and groups I talked to. So the other 3 sources of data that were used that probably did not make it into the OMOS news circuit. The first was called the DISC profile. So if people are familiar with like the Myers-Briggs, this is just it's a similar thing to Myers-Briggs. It's just a little bit different in that it asks people to self-reflect on observable behaviors, what they do in times of stress, particularly. And that gave me a sense of how Father Mark likes to interact with his staff, maybe even interact with the faithful. The second piece of information that is used is called Mission Insight. This tool was developed by I think ACS Technologies actually bought Mission Insight from, it was a separate company. They have now since merged. And Mission Insight is really just a wealth of information. It is a data hub that pulls information from Experian, census data, as well as Synergos, which just again has a ton of information. It takes all of that data and overlays it into mapping software. So what we were able to do was plug in the address for OMOS and look at a 2-mile radius around OMOS to understand who the people are that live in close proximity to the parish. And I'll share some of those findings too, because that's really instrumental in understanding target markets, target ministry areas that you might want to move into, opportunities for evangelization. It will tell us who is represented from the community, but maybe who is not represented from the local community. So it's a great source of data. And then the last piece of data that I had was provided from the parish, and that was generally some parish data such as baptisms, mass attendance, registrations, and all those kinds of things. Steve, you can go to the next slide. So out of all of those data sources, you can see the top 5 strengths listed on the screen. Those were the things that really stood out as strengths of Our Mother of Sorrows. I already talked a little bit about hospitality and welcome, and I already talked a little bit about the pastor leadership. But the Sunday encounter is really from the moment people pull into the parking lot, they're greeted, they're handed a worship aid, there's music playing when they go into the church. People are participative during Mass. The preaching is great. And then after Mass, people don't run to their cars and immediately leave. They might stay and have social conversations. They might move over to the parish hall to have some type of religious education or other ministry or program. So that also stood out. Another strength was the service and outreach. The number of people involved in service and outreach from the parish, as well as the number of people that are being served in organizations. So that was a strength. And then last, but certainly not least, was the spiritual growth mindset of the parish. This was pulled out of the discipleship indicator results. So when asked where people were on their spiritual journey, 88% of those that took the survey responded that they were growing in their faith. That is anywhere between 5 to 10% higher than any other parish that has taken the discipleship indicator. So I think that is significant in the aspect that not only are people identifying that they're growing or want to grow, but you can see it on a Sunday when people pour into the parish center to get more education and formation. Some of the areas maybe that are opportunities for growth, we talked about confession already. The second is collaboration. And this was in the sense that people would like to expand the relationships with other churches, Catholic and non-Catholic, and maybe other service organizations to sort of build up both the evangelization piece as well as just the community piece, to have supporters and community outside of the parish walls. The next one was social events. This came up a few times, particularly as it relates to the fact that there are no fundraisers. The fundraisers, while they were primarily sent to raise funds, were also social opportunities for people to gather together. And so there's a longing for those social opportunities to gather just for fellowship. Adoration was something else that came out as maybe something that there's an area of opportunity. Participation in adoration is quite low. And a lot of people in church, and you can kind of see great case studies of it out there, believe that if people are participating more in adoration, their spiritual growth just skyrockets. And so that's something that if you have the desire, I can provide some case studies on that too that have been done across the country. Sure. Succession planning. This is a tricky one, and it came up in a couple of different ways. So certainly the number one fear that people have at OMOS is that one day Father Mark will retire or leave or be transferred. Okay. Naturally, that's a concern because people are so well connected.
No, he's not going anywhere. Don't worry. He's not being transferred. He's not allowed.
He is not going anywhere.
He's not allowed to leave. It's just, so we can bypass that. We're not worried about that. No,
Right.
No, we are. It is a big concern.
We're laughing about it here. Like,
We could always stuff them like Trey.
Yeah, we could. He could be weekend at Bernie's. Even if he's gone, we can just put him up there. We have plenty of recorded homilies. We can
do.
keep going.
Yeah, they'll never know. Anyway.
Well, the way that this really presents itself as actionable in OMOS is from the lay perspective. So there are so many ministries happening, but most of them do not have any type of formal or maybe even informal succession plan. So there's kind of that saying that says people don't join their parish ministries because they don't want to sign up for a lifetime commitment, right? So we need to make sure that we have people ready to step in should there be a life change or someone wants to step back. And so that is something that is actionable at the parish level.
And very, very important too. Very important.
Very important. And then the last area of opportunity or growth is really tracking and reporting. It's really on sort of the administrative side. And that's from talking to some of the staff members and some of the ministry leaders that there's not maybe the software available that really helps support them in what they're trying to do in terms of tracking and communicating with volunteers, being able to print off a report of the number of volunteer hours or the number of people involved in ministries. So that's something that my hope is that Fulfill, the organization, can help support at no cost to the parish, can help provide that. And then, you know, just as I would do in a typical case study report, no different here, I wanted to provide some recommendations back to Father Mark and the leadership team there. So the first is general outreach, which I know that OMOS is already doing a ton of. If you remember, that came up as a strength of the parish. But in looking at that mission insight report, it tells me that the population of single parents within a 2-mile radius of OMOS is much higher than the rest of the state of Pennsylvania. So there are a lot of single parents, a lot of single vocation people right around the community, and they're not as well represented at OMOS as they are in the community. Again, Black African Americans, millennials, these are populations that are increasing around OMOS, but we're not seeing the same population in OMOS. Now, I want to add a caveat there because before we started this podcast or this show, I'm not sure what you call it.
Podcast is fine.
Asked a question about millennials, and you know, there are a lot of millennials participating in OMOS, but it's really hard nationally to get nationally, not just at OMOS, for millennials to take surveys, to formally register at parishes. That's not uncommon, and it really speaks just to the generation and sort of their spontaneity in going to different parishes, or their busyness with having families or just starting families, traveling a lot. So it's just not uncommon to not see a high response from millennials, even though they are present in the area. Confession, we talked about both confession and adoration in the sense that people have a desire to participate more, but right now the numbers are quite low in both of those. So enhanced music was something that didn't show on the discipleship indicator. There's not a specific question about music, but what I will say is in conversations, people feel that the music has come a long way, that it's really improved over the years, and they would just like to see that continue. They'd like to continue to see enhanced music happen at all the masses.
Excellent.
Strategic planning. This is both in terms of succession planning as well as really just setting some priorities for the parish and related goals so that everyone in the community is aware of what you're working towards, that you can work towards that together as a community. And then lastly was just, again, what I would say is low-hanging fruit is to maybe come up with some social events. And as a relative of mine who might be on this call or might not be, suggested at one of the meetings, the fundraisers that you used to do could be done in a way that aren't set to raise funds necessarily, but could be used as service opportunities. So my understanding is there used to be a nut roll making fundraiser, and people kind of miss making the nut rolls and having that opportunity to be together. Those could be donated to food pantries, the kitchens, that kind of thing. So,
Lori, I just wish you had been able to be a little fly on the wall during some of the sessions we have in here, because the guy to my left, and I wrote in my own set of questions for you, I capitalized the word "not," a fan of fundraising. I mean, he's to the point where he said, there'll be none. And I was interested when I read that you got a fairly large percentage of people, I mean, relative, okay, not large, but people that thought that opportunity for fellowship was more than raising money. Like, we know the gentlemen who are sitting in the studio every week with Father Mark know there's never going to be a bingo here. We're perfectly content that will never
That's
happen.
fine. I like this angle, though. I like the idea.
I
Let's
do
just
too.
Fellowship, and if money flows from it, great. But push the fellowship.
But the point I want to make here is to try to soften the blow for this guy, because I mean, he's a hard no. He's a slam the desk. There's not going to be any fundraising. I think your survey showed people want that opportunity to come together. You mentioned something else. And I tell people this all the time. I said, this is the first church I've ever belonged to. When Mass is over, first of all, they stay till the end of the last hymn. That never happens. And they don't leave when Mass is over. And that's so important. So there's that impetus for socializing. And I'm not trying to pin you down here, but it's like that fundraising fellowship thing is important to a lot of people, isn't it? We're trying to convince somebody here.
It is. Now, in fairness, none of the people that talked about it said they really want to raise funds.
Yes,
they really
I got
just want
that.
the opportunities to gather. And that's why I said with the nut roll example, whatever those events were, could they still happen, but with a different end goal? So maybe it's not raising funds, maybe it's, contributing to a local food bank or helping some population of people in need.
You want to say something about that at all? I can just share a thought or
Sure.
two. Okay, I'll just go quickly. My great fear in all that, first of all, with fundraising, most especially, is if we as a parish are about evangelization and discipleship. That's what we're about. I forget who it was that said one time, if it's not about evangelization and discipleship, we're not doing it, because that's our mission. I don't want to miss our mission, and that's my biggest fear. And that we get caught up in maybe socializing amongst ourselves as opposed to going out and reaching the community and living our faith in that deeper sort of way. That's my only great fear. The fundraising thing. I was glad you said that, because I know they want to get together. They've mentioned that to me a number of times.
Well, and the interesting thing is we do an annual picnic. It's not a fundraiser, but all these people come together and they're all over the campus here and they're talking and they're having a nice time. I didn't want to make, I know how you feel. We all know how you feel. It's drummed into us. We've got, but the point that the survey of saying people want that opportunity to engage.
And I get that.
And I think that's a great way to evangelize. The more time we can get people together, the easier it is to tell them about the importance of developing that relationship
Bring
with Christ.
people with you.
Yes.
into those events
Absolutely.
Okay.
that aren't part of the parish.
There was a group that met last week about the activities, and I don't know exactly what came of that yet. But so anyway, that's that.
All right, now you had a comment while she was going through her slide, and I kind of jumped in there on this topic.
Well, go ahead.
Do you remember what you wanted to talk about, Jerry?
And we have a comment. You probably saw that one about Julie had a good comment, and I like to really parse some of the data anyway too with
Why don't
things
you
like
go ahead
this.
and do that? Yes, do that.
Yeah, it's the fact that the majority of participants were women over the age of 50 affect the results.
That's a great question, and that is very consistent with what we see nationally. And part of that reason is because historically, that is the group that is predominantly engaged in volunteerism and ministries. It might not be the case at Omos, but it might be, and obviously it is, at least from the discipleship indicator results. Typically, the females are doing a lot of the volunteer work and ministry work at parishes, so that's why you're seeing more from them. So it's definitely relevant because they're the people that are in your pews.
Sure.
Question.
Anybody else have any other questions? I want to just I wanted to ask you. And I think my question isn't to you necessarily, Lori, but it's to the parish, those who are watching us right now. In regards to confession, what would they see as the thing that we need to do to move forward? Probably more time. I'm being very practical here. I'm sorry about and exposition too. Now we have exposition of the Blessed Sacrament 2 hours before every weekday mass, but we don't have it. But the church is open for 12 hours a day. Which, by the way, I just remembered I forgot to lock the church before I came over here to do that. But anyway, so my question is, what I get what you were saying about all that. Where would they like me to go with it? I guess is the question I'm asking them, asking you, what you heard from them.
Sure. From my perspective, people had not said anything directly about OMOs and what they're offering. It's very personal to people, I believe. So I don't think it's necessarily anything you've done wrong. I don't think it necessarily is about the schedule. I think it's helping people get over the fears or get over whatever is holding them back from taking advantage of that sacrament.
Okay. And I'll just listen for people, what they might want to say about that, if they want to comment here with everything of that too. But Marty, you have some questions?
Well, yeah, I want to go back to that succession plan. You've done, I should have asked you this before, you've done surveys of other parishes, other religious organizations. Is that fair?
Yes, other Catholic churches.
Okay, so where does our concern about succession fall amongst other places that you've been to? Like, is it unique? Is it not unique? Is it what people would expect, not expect? Just some sort of a, lay of the land of that area.
Sure. Yeah, it's a great question. So the survey itself doesn't capture the information about succession planning. That really came up in the conversations with people.
Okay.
And it is exactly where I would expect it to be when the parish is doing well and has leadership that they really connect with. Really, in any parish, succession planning is not great. So I haven't come across a parish that would serve as a model for succession planning yet. It's complicated.
What would you suggest? Well, how would you suggest moving forward?
Yeah, I mean, it's complicated. It has to be intentional. That's the number one thing. There has to be intention around looking ahead at who is going to be leading this parish 5 years from now, 10 years from now, and starting that groundwork now. One way to do that I've done in the past when it comes to working with parishes is sort of formalizing ministry roles. So providing a role description, or what some would say is a job description, a role description, even for volunteer positions that have terms on them, so that you're not the outreach coordinator for 30 years. You want people to cycle through, you want fresh ideas, and you want more engagement from parishioners. So where I think almost is ahead of other parishes is that you have a lot of engaged members, and other parishes don't. So it's like you have the people. It's just a matter of doing the formal invitation, but then providing them with enough data, enough information that they can say yes or say no. No one wants to say yes to a role when they don't know that it's ever going to end. It's overwhelming to think, yeah, I'll be the outreach coordinator, but then with no end date. Nobody wants that.
Could you speak to the idea of the laity reverse? Since the clergy are getting very, very gray, and you're working for a community that's soon going to be even non-existent, maybe in a certain amount of time. How do you see the laity now taking over the role of leadership in the life of the church, and how would you see that working with the clergy in whatever community? Because let's face it, we may have one priest for here, St. Clement's, St. Michael's, I don't know, one priest, and then everything else is run by the laity. How do you see that? How do you envision that going forward?
Yeah, it's critical. Nationally, the landscape of the church and the landscape of vocations and priest numbers are significantly declining, significantly. So it's possible that 50 years from now, there will not be enough priests. Well, they already are not enough priests to run all the parishes that exist. Mm-hmm. That's why in many cities you see parishes closing and merging, not just because there's not enough faithful to fill the pews, but there's not enough priests to run the parishes. We have priests and pastors that are running 2-3 parishes in a given area, and it's just not sustainable. So in order to keep the church going and to continue, we have to step up as lay people. We have to take off the administrative burdens to whatever extent we can from priests and pastors. I don't know if that's helpful. Now, some priests and pastors resist that because the priest, prophet, king idea does include an element of governance, obviously, at the parish level. So sometimes there's a challenge to see from both the priest and the laity about who should be responsible for certain administrative things. So until we have clarity on that, it's going to continue to be a challenge.
Well, and biggest challenge within the Catholic Church is if something happens to Father Mark, it's not our call as to who replaces him.
Yeah,
the bishop decides. Yeah. The bishop decides, and God bless the bishop, because he's going to have to make more of those decisions. The problem is he doesn't have a pool of candidates that's big enough, to just. But that's out of our hand. If he leaves, we have no say over who the next pastor is going to be. And I wonder, without putting you on the spot, the kind of planning that you're talking about, would that make it? Is there a way that the parish can say, we're invested in this, so that any new pastor who came in would have to recognize the kinds of things that we've been doing about lay leadership? Is that a plus or a minus?
I think it's a plus. I think it's true. You can only control the things you can control, right? So we don't know who Father Mark's successor will be or when that will be. So the best thing that you can do is plan and prepare and be ready. And so how nice would it be? Because the truth is, too, pastors, when they come to a new parish, are often overwhelmed. They don't, much like the parish doesn't get, a lot of history about the priest doesn't get a lot of information about the parish. They don't know what they're walking into. So imagine a parish council or a group of ministry leaders that can present Father with a history of what they do, when they do it, how it runs, who their contact people are. What a weight off of the pastor to not have to worry about that, not have to worry about starting over when he gets there. So, you just do your best to plan as much as you can for the things that you can control.
Lori, how do you see the church responding to the urgency of leadership and direction moving forward? How do you see the church responding to all that in general?
Yeah, it's slow. It's a slow process.
Why aren't we more urgent? Why aren't we more urgent?
I think part of it is generational. So the group of people that predominantly make up our Catholic parishes are boomers and traditionalists, the people above them. So they're older populations who were raised in a very different Catholic church, where laity was not as essential, as needed, as invested as they are now. There's a very direct need that anything that was done came from Father. People were not the people making decisions. They want Father to make the decision. They want anything to be approved by him because he is the sole leader. And that mindset is hard to change. It's a different world now. So I would say that that's the biggest hindrance. There are a lot of wonderful movements and a lot of wonderful things happening, including at Omos, where the whole teaching aspect has shifted. It has shifted into a personal relationship with Jesus Christ instead of learning the catechism. And not to say that we don't need to know what the catechism is about, but let's make sure that the first thing we focus on is a relationship with Jesus. Again, totally different mindset. It's a total shift from what it was in the 40s and 50s and 60s.
Now, pretty soon, Julie and I will be going to a Divine Renovation conference next week, I think, which is all about lay leadership, pretty much. So be ready, folks, because it's coming. It's coming to our Mother Sorrows very, very soon. Not that it isn't already here in many ways, because look, I'm surrounded right here by all these people that have expertise about this stuff I know nothing about. So it's already here, but we need to really become more formalized and all that, I think.
Lori, in terms of what it is here, there are several references throughout your report that people talked about being fed. One of the reasons that they love coming here, and I say it all the time, that's why I'm here. And they also talk about almost being spirit-led, and spirit-fed. So it seems to me that we must be doing as a parish some things right, but is that part of our future that we can, I know I just had somebody who joined the parish in the last month who came to one mass, was here to do some silent reflection one day, just stopped by and went in and was intrigued by the beauty of the building. And then I said, well, if you think that's beautiful, wait till you come to one of our services. She came Holy Thursday evening, and she's now a member. Her and her husband have joined. And she said it was that sense of being fed and spirit fed. How important was that in your discussions with people?
Oh yeah, it was huge. I mean, and that's the future too, right? So we can't we can't wait for Father Mark to be our leader for that. People have it in them, so that when Father Mark moves on, which again, caveat, he's not going anywhere.
He's
right?
not allowed. He's not allowed.
He's
so
not
we'll
allowed. But when he does,
It'll be up
that
to
has-
my mental capacity or physical capacity. That'll be the. If I start drooling, you guys can.
No, we can prop you up. We'll have plenty of people running around with little towels. We'll
Yeah.
clean you up.
You're planting the seeds, I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And so you're giving the tools, and it's important that individuals are able to foster that on their own, and in the domestic church, in their homes, with their kids, in their friend groups, with their neighbors, and outside of those walls, outside of the walls of the church. And you all are quite a bit ahead of other parishes in that spiritual relationship and in the spiritual growth mindset that you all have, which is wonderful. It just can't be dependent on the pastor, which I think everyone recognizes, because there is that fear. There is that fear. People know that that's not where their relationship is. It's not a relationship that goes through Father Mark. It has to be a relationship that goes directly to Jesus, and it has to be able to survive on its own.
Absolutely. Did you get much feedback about small groups, parish faith formation, all those different things that?
I heard a lot about Alpha and the number of people that were transformed by participation in Alpha. In fact, I have to tell you, it was so much information in favor of Alpha that I am going to sign up to do Alpha here on my end, because I've never done it. So
there you go.
Everyone was so transformed by it. See, they're evangelizing me, and and it was great. So I made contact with the parish nearby. My parish doesn't offer it, but made contact with another parish to participate in it.
Yeah,
Sounds great.
Villanova should be jumping on that one sometime. But
They should be.
yeah. And small groups and all that, those different things as well. Like here's what I'm thinking of as far as faith formation. Follow your faith tonight. Liturgy of the Word. Small groups. Parish faith formation. Alpha. Did you get much?
Yeah. I think the common theme was there's something for everybody, and people could kind of rattle off all the different activities, and what people participated in were very different.
Okay.
But people were aware and know that there was something there for them, for wherever they were in their journey.
Okay.
I want to, and maybe this is a good time to do it as the hour is coming to. We still have plenty of time to talk about this.
Oh, my.
But future strategic planning, you identified in the survey, is very important. And there were 3 areas of what was described as an area of great concern. We need more disciples in leadership. We need to focus on real change and how to measure it. And we plan a lot, but never implement anything. I mean, that's kind of like a dichotomy there. It's like, they want more leadership, but it's basically then they're saying, but if we plan it, we're not going to do it. Was that a feeling that you got from the parishioners?
It was a feeling from some people, and it also not uncommon. And what I've found in the work that I've done with other parishes is it's hard to plan, but we can do that. We can get a team together, we can get data, and we can come up with a good plan. Where it gets really hard is implementation.
Yep.
It's really hard to take a plan and make it into an operation or make it into something that you can do over the course of 3 to 6 months, because that requires a level of detail And not everyone is, everyone has different gifts. Not everyone is gifted in writing out goals and milestones and action plans. And that's what's required as a next step from a strategic plan. So you can come up with a great plan, but then you have to break it down further into, well, what are the next steps? What realistically needs to be done to get to the goal? And then on top of that, which you already touched on, is how do you assess success? How do you know if you've been successful in forming disciples? Luckily we have the discipleship indicators, so we can do a pre and post survey and have people self-reflect and identify where they were and where they are now. But these things are hard to measure. It's hard to measure discipleship and evangelization and relationship with Christ. Those are really hard things to measure.
Which you helped us do that a great deal here, to be able to measure that as best we can, given the people that responded with all this. Yeah. Do you guys have any questions over here, Jerry?
No. We have a comment from Lisa, but it's more about confession.
Yeah, and you never have to worry about disappointing me. I'm a sinner, and I would just go. We're going to go to a conference tomorrow, and I was looking out. Oh, there's confessions. Priests have a hard time going to confession because we don't get to see each other very often. So I don't have a place right. So I have to go. I have to make an appointment, and I got to go see him and everything else. So I'm going to go to confession.
You said you never remember that anyway.
I never.
Because somebody goes to confession to you, you're not up there thinking the next day at Mass, oh my gosh.
Never. I am on when someone shares their heart with me. You guys know this. When someone shares your heart, man, you're just touched by it. You're on sacred ground. And never do you hold someone in disappointment. No, never.
Well, and as I've told you, I said I was one of those people who had a really awful experience in the confessional, which kept me away for a long time. Not because, it was just like, why am I doing this? Why did what right did that guy have to just say what he said to me, right? I'm pouring my heart out, and he's just trying to rip me a new one. And I thought, okay, I don't want to do that anymore. And I think there's a lot of people that, we grew up. You didn't, Lori, because you're too young. But the old guys sitting in this room, we memorized how many times I fought with my brother and my sister, all those things. And it wasn't useful. It was just something you had to do, and you did it in a dark place, and you really weren't sure. And then you had to say 25 Hail Marys and go, why am I doing this, right? And it's changed a lot. The name change was a big thing about reconciling. Yeah. But that's another. One thing I want to get to, because as your work in this field, you did both in person and online. We talk all the time about online. You can hide behind your computer, behind your keyboard, say whatever you want to say. Face-to-face is much more difficult because you can't hide. You are there. But it seemed to me, and I'm wondering, you got the same feel from both ends. Is that unusual? That, because when you're behind a computer, you can say whatever you want to say, because I did the online survey. Because I knew he wouldn't let you interview me, but no, but I did the online survey, and I was struck by the fact that it seemed like both camps were in the same mindset. Is that unusual?
Well, it's what you hope for. I'm not sure that it's unusual, but certainly in some cases you see a difference. I will also say that typically the interviews are with the most engaged people. And you hope that the ministry leaders and the staff are aware of what's happening at the parish with the general faithful, and that's the case. So that's a good thing. It's a good thing that everyone's having a similar experience. Again, not to say that every individual is having the same experience, because of course there may be people out there that don't feel welcomed, but that's not the big picture. There would be a concern if all of the leaders in ministry and engaged people had one view of the parish, and the faithful and the visitors had a very different view. That would be a concern, and that's not what we're seeing here.
So, Lori, I'm going to get one more question before we get, and this is kind of you mentioned this. I'm looking at your discipleship indicator results. Okay.
Yes.
And on the second page of that, top 3 things almost could do better to help your relationship with Jesus. And you mentioned 4 there because one of them was a tie. Would you be able to just address those briefly? I'm on it's a paper that folks I don't think you all have, but anyway, the three were teach me how to see Jesus in all aspects of my life, love me when I need it the most. That one's the one that jumped off at me. Pray with me, create fellowship opportunities, and so some of those themes are we've heard before. But anyway, if you could speak to them.
Sure. So one of the questions on the survey was what there was a list provided of about 10 options. And the question was, what are the top 3 things in this list that you feel almost could do better to help your relationship with Christ? And the results, as Father just said, teach me how to see Jesus in all aspects of my life, got the highest number of respondents at 27%. And I think really what that's saying is it's sometimes easy to live our faith inside the walls. What's harder to do is to know how to be a Catholic outside the walls in everyday interaction. That's when we created these questions, that's what we meant. How am I a good Catholic? How am I a good disciple when I'm at work, in a hospital, or in a school? When I'm surrounded maybe by people who aren't faithful, how do I interact? And I think that's probably where that stems from. Now, that's anecdotally what I believe. I could certainly put together a focus group and ask, but I think that's where that's headed.
Okay.
The second one was love me when I need it most. And I think that you hope that that's what you desire from a community of people that you're worshiping with. That tells me that the relationship in the church goes beyond strangers, worshiping with strangers. Because if I was worshiping with strangers, I wouldn't have a desire that they're loving me when I need it most, right? So I think that speaks to, which we saw in the results, the high percentage of people that relate to OMOs as their family or close friends, which was one of the questions.
Excellent. Thank you. That's good.
Mm-hmm. And then the last 2 were praying with me and or for me, and create fellowship opportunities. Those were tied at 21%. We've already kind of talked about the fellowship opportunities quite a bit, but praying with me and for me, again, I think just people they come to church, they come to the community with all of themselves, with all their challenges and all their problems, and they are just asking for the community support in that. And so just to be mindful in the community that people have struggles and maybe offer to pray with them or pray for them. And really pray with them then, not what I think we do a lot as Catholics is I'll add you to my prayer list and I'll go home and I'll pray for you in my nightly prayers. But how powerful would it be to say, let's pray right now and just be with them and pray with them so they can feel that love and be in together with you in prayer, not alone.
It's kind of funny. I just saw that happening after the 8:30 Mass. A couple got together and they were over by the tabernacle and the guy asked them to pray for them and they just there spontaneously on the spot. So it's kind of really cool to see. I see it all the time, which is so cool. I can just walk by and say I know what they're doing and I just keep on going, and just so beautiful to see that all the time.
I think a lot of us, Lori, and you, much of this survey reflects it. We know how blessed we are to have Father Mark as our spiritual leader. I've told people I came because I was being fed here. This man say I was leaving the church. My job in media meant that I had exposure to the priest scandal and had information that others didn't have. And I was very close to I'm done. I can't do this anymore. I'm a cradle Catholic, but I can't. And this man and this parish saved me, kept me, because I was gone. And it's such a unique experience. And I just wonder if we appreciate it as much as we should. But was strong through your whole report. I mean, the guy got really good, and I'm not trying to butter him up because he's still going to yell at me about certain things that I say to him on this program, and I know that.
And Lori asked me the question, what are you doing great in the parish? And I said, nothing, so nothing.
True, he did.
You know what I mean? It's not like he's following some plan, and he's trying to, it's just the feeling that he brings, and I think that came through in your report.
Yeah. I if I could just say one more thing.
You can say 2 more things if you want.
Overwhelmingly, people feel fed, people feel connected. Every organization has opportunities for growth. So we don't want to lose sight. We don't want to be stagnant. But as a little kind of funny story, I had a chance to meet with the youth group. And when you say, do people realize what we have? most of the students that were there have never worshiped in another place. And so I felt like I was sitting around a campfire telling ghost stories when I was like, at some parishes, people get in their cars and leave. At some parishes, people don't say hi to each other, you know. So in that sense, I don't know that in such a great way, they have only been experiencing such great things. And I encourage them each to go and experience a mass somewhere else and see what they thought and see the comparison. So
Lori, you have been such a gift, and I'm sure the family is applauding. That was stuffed into that one house. But seriously, you've opened our eyes. I think you've given us reasons to feel. You know, sometimes you're so close to something, too close to the forest to see the trees. But this really gave us that view that we needed, and I thank you for your thoroughness. I think you asked great questions, and your response tonight to us. You were a blessing.
And a lot have watched us tonight, and I'm really glad so they can get to hear you talk about all these things and not just me summarizing or something else. Get to hear you. And I think that's the best part of tonight. That was great.
Well,
so thank you.
I'm so grateful for the opportunity and for, to be with you and to worship with your community and get to know you each. So I'm happy to do more of this and share results with other people, but thank you so much for the time and for going through this process with me.
Be careful what you offer, because he'll take you up. I'm just telling you. That's why we're here. Okay, so that you understand. Lori, thanks so much.
Thanks everybody for watching. So we'll be back. We'll let you know when we're coming back. Couple weeks we'll be back, and another guest speaker after that too. All right, thank you very much. Thanks, Lori.
Good night.
Thanks everybody.
Have a good night.